Welcome to Mock 10 Sports. I appreciate you joining us. Man, did we have a good one in Austin, Texas this past weekend. I think right before I was getting on to shoot the show, I saw that it was like the most viewed game in Fox Sports history. I mean, it was unbelievable numbers, and I see why. I mean, first of all, the brand, the two logos, but then second, you had an incredible game that nobody was thinking. Not me. I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. I thought Bama would win in a landslide, but final, Bama got the W 20-19. Not last second, but down like within the last minute, big kick by Will Reichard. It's kind of weird being a Bama fans out there kind of thinking, hey man, I feel confident in the kicking game. We get down there, we may make this. You rewind that 5-6 years ago, that's not the case. But say raucous environment. Will Anderson said probably one of the more loud environments they'd been in since he'd been in Alabama, which is saying a lot. So it looks like Texas is getting a little SEC ready. It's kind of weird timing of the game, 11 a.m. I know a lot of people weren't real fond of that. I mean, offensive struggle all the way around. I know Texas Hudson Card had to step in, played a little injured off his ankle after Quinn Ewers went out. Just a bunch of penalties, 15 penalties for Alabama, unusual. Let me give you a little review of both sides of the ball. Offense, how about the assassin himself? That's what I'm going to start calling him. The assassin himself, Bryce Young. Do not get that dude in a 2-minute drive. Do not get him in a 2-minute drill. You don't want that. Like, do not save that guy any time. He's the Steph Curry of basketball. I said that in the summer. Nick Saban must have been listening to me as he echoed the same statement. He's like a great point guard in basketball. Saban brought that up. It was just like, man, Steph Curry's not a point guard, but he can handle the ball. But, man, Bryce Young, just a straight killer. Of his 213 passing yards, 136 came in the fourth quarter, 15 for 19 in the fourth quarter. Got it done with his legs as well as he converted a big 3rd and 7 play for 17 yards, then got the critical play to avoid a big sack from a blitzing corner on 1st and 10 that ultimately got Bama into field goal range for Reichard to put it through and give Bama ultimately the win. Bryce Young, most valuable player in the country right now. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Moving on, I got to give a tip of the cap a little bit here to my guy, Pete Kwiatkowski. I don't know him personally, but I thought he had a good game plan coming in, played a lot of corners, was just going to leave everything in front of them, did not give Bama much of a chance to take the top off the defense. Was going to say, hey, Alabama and Bill O'Brien, you're going to have to be patient to score on us. They did not give them a lot of chances to take a bunch of deep shots. Thought he did a really good job of keeping everything in front of them and probably challenged the Texas defense this week to step up and be like, hey, no one's giving us a chance. They think they're going to go put 40 up on us. Trust the plan, guys. Go out there and deliver because there's enough talent on that Texas defense to make stops against quality offenses. Another thing I saw, the interior of the offensive line for Alabama and the overall running game. Guys like Kendall Randolph, Darian Dalcourt, Emil Ekiyor, and Javion Cohen just didn't get it done up front. It looked solid. I think I went and looked up the stats. I think 6 out of the first 10 carries to a true running back went for 4+ yards. But I feel like Texas adjusted a little bit. And you just didn't see the physicality up front from Alabama that you're used to seeing here. Last year, that was a struggle. Is it going to get answered this year? Too early to tell. But Texas, I'll give Texas credit. They were a lot more physical on the defensive line than I was expecting them to be. I went back, I watched the tape from them against ULM before I previewed the Alabama game. And I did think they were more physical. But I didn't know if they would be ready for this or not, and they were and more. They out-physicaled Bama's offensive line. Bama doesn't have the running back this year that they've had in the past, the big bruisers that can take the beating of taking shots after shots like they have. They don't have a guy to complement. I like Jahmyr Gibbs. Do not get me wrong. Jahmyr Gibbs is more of a pro-style back now, how they like to throw him out to the backfield. You saw that a lot. Had a lot of touches out in the flats. Bama got him involved in the passing game. But again, though, he's only about 200, 205, probably closer to 200 pounds. Jace McClellan's 212, according to Bama's website. Those two guys would be the smallest dudes if you went back in time and used guys, for example. I know these are bigger dudes, but Bama doesn't have that, and that's my point this year. There's no Bo Scarborough, no Damian Harris, Josh Jacobs, Najee Harris, or Brian Robinson. Big guys who can absorb contact, not get tackled by the initial tackler, fall forward, always be picking up positive yards and keeping you ahead of the sticks. I don't think Bama has that this year. That is nothing again. Again, I like Jahmyr Gibbs and I like Jace McClellan. I wish they had more of a complement to them, more of a bigger back like the guys I just mentioned. Wide receivers. I know this has kind of been talked about a lot. Is there I see some people nationally talking about, is it a talented room or is it how they're being utilized? I said all week, you can go back to my Twitter, look up the receipts as people call it. Does Bama have a guy step up as a true number one receiver like they've had here the last few years? Or is it more by committee? As we saw, it really looked like you didn't get any answer. I mean, I think Bama misses guys like JoJo Earl, who has a foot injury, don't know when he'll be back. Tyler Harrell is another explosive threat like Earl that Bama's kind of missing. And then Aaron Anderson, who's a freshman that they signed, who has the potential to be that. All three of those guys are on the shelf right now. So there's nothing they can do about that. When they will be back, TBD, to be determined. I don't know, but I think they could help from an explosive standpoint. There were some key drops by some veterans. I mean, Jermaine Burton, the Georgia transfer, comes in, drops a ball. And young guy Kobe Prentice had a big drop too. Talent, I don't think's the issue. I don't know if there's a true just overall number one guy like a Jamison Williams or a Devontae Smith, guys like that, etc. And some of it was scheme. I'll give Texas some credit now. They weren't allowing Bama to be explosive. And in the opportunities Bama did get at the intermediate plays to make some plays, they dropped. So still to be determined. Don't think Bama will be tested. We won't know if they have an answer to that for another 2 weeks until they go to Fayetteville, because they have Louisiana Monroe this week and they play Vandy. Both are home games. I don't think you're going to learn a lot about Bama if they've gotten a lot better on the offensive line or wide receivers at that point. We'll see when they face a Barry Odom-led defense. Now, to say that, Arkansas has some injuries on the back end that I don't know if those guys will be back in time. I know Jalen Catalon won't, but it'll be interesting to see if anybody else is back from Arkansas at that point on the back end to help against that Alabama offense. Moving on to the defense, I thought the defense overall did not play bad. The issue was there was a lot of penalties between Will Anderson jumping off sides 3 times, having the uncharacteristic, unsportsmanlike penalty he had out in the flats, pushing the guy down as he was already down, just face mask penalties all the time for Bama. Some pass interferences, some questionable, some not, whatever. They were called. Bama had 15 total penalties. It was probably the most undisciplined Alabama game I can remember since, I'm going to exactly date you here, the Florida State game in Jacksonville, Florida, Nick Saban versus Bobby Bowden in his first year. I think that was their most penalized game in the Saban era, but this topped it with 15. The Tide defense just looked frustrated overall. Now, to be fair, the run game, I thought they held up well. The defense held Texas to 2.4 yards per carry. The red zone defense was good as well, in my opinion. You held Texas out of the end zone in 4 of their 5 red zone trips and honestly won you the game. Under the radar stat, no one's really talking about, but they held Texas out of the end zone on 4 out of their 5 red zone trips. I do think the defensive line, like I've said, going into this summer, they need an interior pass rusher. What do I mean by that? It can't just be Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell, those guys coming off the edge. As you saw, Texas is going to or other teams too, Texas did. They're going to bring a tight end, mass protect, chip Will Anderson, whoever it may be, with a running back or a tight end to give extra time. They brought they had 6-man protection to give Ewers and Hudson Card time to get the ball downfield when Texas did take their shot. So they were calculated with that. You have to have someone step up, whether it's Byron Young, Justin Mboigbe, or DJ Dale step up on the interior and be a disruptive person there. Believe me, if you're calling plays on offense, I would much rather be facing an interior edge guy than a guy who is very disruptive on the interior. And all the Bama great teams that have won it have ended up having guys by the end of the year taking over games on the interior. So they need to have someone step up. With that being said, do they need some more production out of the edge? Sure. I think Texas was trying to get it out, though, a little bit more. I know Will Anderson was getting frustrated, getting doubled, getting chipped, but some of it I think was scheme. Steve Sarkisian is a smart guy. He knows you're not going to sit back there without the mass protection and getting it out. I don't think Bama really had as many chances to get there on the edge, so that's why I think that's when the interior pass rush is. You can't scheme that. That's either your X is better than his O at that point. A positive on the defense, another positive. Jalen Moody had 10 tackles, I think 1 tackle for a loss, flying around. They were worried he may went into the transfer portal this past year, the senior from South Carolina, but he did not, and that's a good thing for the Tide because he was flying around making plays all over the football field, like the way Jalen Moody's stepping up. Texas, you could tell they had some familiarity with the Bama defense. Sarkisian being there for a while. Kyle Flood, the offensive coordinator, was offensive line coach at Alabama. Jeff Banks, tight end special teams coordinator, was the same at Alabama. A.J. Milwees, the quarterback's coach, he was an analyst at Alabama. I think the difference between the experience, I know we talked about the experience or the knowledge people had when we were comparing the Oregon-Georgia game from last week. The difference is, though, I think you got a lot more veteran coaches that were more familiar on the Texas staff between Sark, Flood, Banks, Milwee. Those guys had been around Bama for an extent, but they were also older guys and Sark had been a head coach before. So I think that was the big difference. Xavier Worthy put a lot of stress on the Tide secondary, which he's going to do that to most defenses he played. I was real interested to see him. I liked him. I like him even more now. That guy did a great job, real threat, stretched Bama vertically. I liked what I saw with Xavier Worthy from Texas. And with that said, let's don't forget to mention Will Reichard. What a weapon he is for Alabama now. I'll be honest with you. When Bryce Young got the ball, the 2-minute drill, I'm like, Bama's going to come down here, get in field goal range and win the thing. And he did. I mean, he hit on a 52-yarder on the first drive, and then the 33-yarder to end it. The kid is 4 for 4 on the season. Big weapon that they'll probably need again at some point. Kicking is not a concern for Bama. Overall, not the overall result you wanted as a Bama fan or you were expecting. I think most people, I took the line, minus 20.5. I gave up those points, and it was never really even doubt. Texas was always in that game and probably was the better team that day, if I'm being honest with you. It's crazy to say Texas probably should have won that game. Bama needs more discipline. Like I said, that was the most undisciplined team I'd seen. That has to get fixed. And I want to see some more physicality overall on offense out of everyone. The offensive line for sure, blocking on the perimeter, guys need to step up. You need to be more violent as runners too. Overall, the offense needs to step up overall from a physicality standpoint. You need a receiver to step up or a group of receivers to step up. But again, Bama's next real test, 2 weeks in Fayetteville. The question marks I had in the summer were really exposed this past week. Still plenty of time. I think Saban's licking his chops right now. You wouldn't want to be as a staff member in that building this week because it's already ULM Monroe week, and he's already pretty tight during those weeks. But after what you just saw in Austin, he knows there's a lot to be fixed this week. And I think at heart, he kind of likes knowing that's going to be a challenge. But with that being said, those are my thoughts on the Alabama-Texas game. I appreciate you joining us on this segment of Mock 10 Sports. Keep following us on Mock 10 Sports for the best information on SEC sports.